Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Logistics Executive TV. Pleased to see you today, and a couple of very special guests I have with me today. Our first guest is the founder of New Gen Architects, a consulting company in the US. They help companies leverage the supply chain to improve operational productivity, quality, and profit margins. She has worked at a number of consultancies, Myrtle, now Accenture, Anaplan, and a number of others. And I'd like to welcome Dyci Surigola from, where are you, Dyci, today? In Atlanta, aren't you?
No, I'm actually in Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Ah, there you go. Welcome.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thanks, Dyci. And also have with us Elisha Herman. Hey, Elisha, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Thanks, Elisha. And you are with AWS, probably the fastest growing part of Amazon. Well, you'd know more about them than what I would. You're a digital innovation strategist, you're a information architect, you're a stakeholder engagement specialist, digital transformation, change management, and strategic program manager. You've worked with companies such as Neversite, Bayer, KPMG as a Director of International Trade Technology and Transformation. So welcome, and thank you both for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Excellent. So today, because you're both transformation gurus, we're going to talk about transformation. I want to talk about what you're seeing with your clients, what you see some of the macro factors being out there at the moment, and we'll then get into some of the solutions. But perhaps I can start with you, Elisha. You are dealing with thousands of organizations as AWS. What are some of the macroeconomic factors that are impacting on supply chains, especially that you're seeing at the moment?
Yeah, I think from my customer's perspective, or just maybe at large, I think there's not a lot of good history for forecasting. And so companies are really looking for data to figure out how to balance their supply chains, right? So the last couple of years have been ebbing and flowing. 2020 probably wasn't great data. 2021 probably wasn't great data either. So companies are really just grasping on to how do they collect the data to make decisions, whether that be external data or internal data.
Okay, good stuff. And from your side, Dyci, I mean, I know you're consulting to a whole range of organizations that are trying to get their transformations right across their supply chain up and running. What are you seeing as some of the big macro factors out there at the moment? What are the big impacts that are taking place on the supply chain from your perspective?
The biggest thing that is on our side, and it's very interesting because Elisha and I have similar but also different, customers. And on the AWS side, it is very much data, and trying to figure out how to harness that. On my side, we've really doubled down just from a demand perspective to really work with a lot of small and medium manufacturers because of everything that has happened the last couple of years. And then here we have the Biden administration with the CHIPS Act, and they're really investing a lot in reshoring and getting manufacturers to a point to be able to take on those federal dollars and to be able to take on all of the anticipated new demand here in the States and even nearby neighbors in Canada and Mexico. And what we're seeing from a transformation perspective, going back to the data, just talking about systems, talking about processes, a lot of the small manufacturers aren't ready for that. So we're working with them to get to the point of a transformational initiative to be able to say, yes, I am now ready to take on that new demand. I have the capacity and the understanding of how to scale and grow.
And you're finding, Dyci, that most organizations that you're dealing with, the tools or are aware of the tools that can assist them with the transformations, or there's a lot of gaps there?
There are a lot of gaps. There are a lot of gaps there. I mean, we're dealing with smart people. We're dealing with people who have creative businesses and they have employees. So it's not that they don't know that things are out there, but the market right now has been so saturated since the pandemic. There is a lot of investment in log tech. There is a lot of investment in all of the supply chain tech. So now, and not to be critical, I think that from a technology perspective, especially for small businesses, the tech market is oversaturated. There's a lot of, and a lot is perhaps relative to who you're speaking to. But I get regularly, startups and different leaders that want my opinion. What do you think about this tool? And, I follow a couple of people on LinkedIn who kind of share the same opinion from a technology perspective. It's a lot of repackaging the technology that's already been out there. And then from the ERP side, we deal a lot with industrialized construction. So modular manufacturers, prefab construction, it's manufacturing and construction. But there isn't a tool right now that is just for that industry. So people are trying to hodgepodge things together, which is fine, because there are point solutions, you integrate them, but they don't know what that looks like. It's like, well, what do I get? What do I do first? Where do I put it? What data do I use? What becomes my source of truth? The system of record. So they know that things are out there, but there's just so much that they don't even really know where to start.
Okay. Yeah, Elisha?
I actually was just with a construction manufacturer company yesterday, and and really at large at a forum, still everyone dealing with kind of that mitigation. What is the supplier risk that's out there? Where should they be moving their factories? They don't want to be heavily reliant. They're also looking at labor shortages still. If the construction company, for example, had a 50% attrition just in the market, and really trying to balance out how do we keep labor and retention. And then also from just an at-large perspective, digital transformation is different from digital modernization, and companies are really trying to figure out that path of where do they go? What do I start with first? Do I start with IoT sensors in the manufacturing plant? Do I need to get to predictive maintenance? There's so much talk about Chat GPT and how do I leverage AI and ML, and what are the use cases that are really relevant for me? So I'm hearing very similar things in the market. So I don't think large enterprise has had it figured out. They just might have a lot more smart people, investigating the solutions for the problems.
Sure. And you both
digital modernization versus transformation, because that is what I'm seeing a lot of. It's not, let's transform the whole thing, but like, how do I just come into 2023 because I haven't updated my ERP? We were still on-prem from 1996. You know what I mean? Like, how do we just modernize a piece of it?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Just to that point, there's a lot of modernization bringing things. Do I even have like the right lead time data in there? Do I have a SIOP process? Can I connect sales and demand gen? It's really bringing together all of the functions still is kind of that modernization, but it's a focus on, I'll say, process modernization with the technologies to support it. So we now do have tools, process mining tools, digital workers, those types of automation type of tools, but you still need the roadmap and the plan to decide what are we modernizing and what are we transforming and what value does that bring to our company.
You don't want to just do demos first?
Right.
Start with the
demo. So I know both of you are at events a lot. You're both guest speakers at events. And in fact, Dyci, I think we met in the Middle East a year or two ago, when it was last year or the year before. And you're a guest speaker, and yourself as well, Elisha, obviously. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you about just quickly was, for both of you, are you seeing, when you talk about tools, when we talk about solutions, and we talk about the tech solutions in particular, are most of your clients that you're dealing with finding the right people? Are they finding the resources, the human resource that have the skills that are needed? in today's environment where transformation is required quite urgently in a lot of companies to cope with the dynamics that are going on in the wider economy. Maybe DC, you first. I mean, is there a big community of people in transformation out there, or are they growing on trees, or is it a little bit more challenging?
I think that there's, from my experience, and this is also because of the size of customer that I deal with. So I'd be very interested to know if Elisha has the same experience, because she's dealing with these larger enterprise customers. Within my space of that small to medium business and what they're trying to do from a readiness assessment and then road mapping, et cetera, there isn't a big need for, like, I need a full-time person, that I need to be here all of the time. So from the perspective of just being able to find that advisor, that phone a friend, that can you help me out for this implementation, and then just stick around a couple of hours a week after that to assist the team, that is definitely out there. I don't think that those people, because I know myself, I know the network of practitioners that I leverage when I don't have an expertise and I can have someone come in. I mean, these aren't people that have the ad spend of Deloitte or Accenture, you know what I mean? So if you don't know who to ask, then it might be difficult to find them, but there are definitely people who are out there who can support. From a full-time resource, like hiring perspective, I know that those people are expensive. So like I said, I don't even look at them for my customers. There's no way that my customer is going to be able, with all of the other, things that they're trying to solution, it's just not a priority to try to find that full-time headcount and come up with that job description. So I'm interested to know if Elisha, if she is in that same space, being on a larger scale.
I do think there are a lot of resources out there, but I've seen kind of, it's kind of like the waterfall, right? First, you have ERP implementations, and then your team is trained up on ERP, and then you're moving to the next transformation. So you might have consultants that come in, but then your business has changed. So there's a lot of people that are now coming up with those skills, but it does take a certain amount of skill set to blend people, process, technology, and data, and then turn that into a strategy and a roadmap. So those are a certain particular set of skills that bridge, functional business strategy and technology to put those together. So they are out there, and I think more and more will come up as companies transform. Then people will move on to be consultants or move on to other companies to join in those efforts. But what I have noticed is different kind of shifts in how projects are delivered. Like for example, is a large enterprise, what does the makeup of the team look like? Are you training your team members that are currently in IT to do this new function? Are you hiring consultants? How are you working together? Are you backfilling? What does that model look like? And I've also heard many times now from companies, when they're backfilling perhaps a functional area, they're actually hiring analysts, like data analysts or business analysts, to come in, because they believe they can teach them the process in the business, but they want somebody with that analytical skill. So I think the job market is just changing a little bit. I do think there's plenty of talent out there. You just have to find it and utilize it in the way that works with your efforts.
Yeah, I think Elisha makes a good point, because a lot of what we're doing is, from that small, medium business perspective, a lot of what we're doing is that holistic view that does require that very broad, I wouldn't even say specific, it requires a broader skill set to be able to say level of effort, impact, analysis. What are the objectives of long-term objectives, short-term objectives? Are we trying to be profitable? Are we trying to reduce waste? You can't do everything. So what are you actually trying to achieve? And then what can you optimize that you already have? What can you implement? Who do you hire? Is it full-time, et cetera, et cetera? So we're doing a lot of the, I want to call it high level, because that's the term that comes to my mind, but what's the best practice? How do you get this set up? What is the structure? And then our customers plan to hire in that analyst. So the analyst doesn't have to set everything up. You have someone more experienced with that holistic view setting it up, but then you're bringing in an analyst full time to keep it going, to make recommendations for improvements, different iterations, et cetera. So that's aligned with kind of what we're seeing also.
Yeah, I got to say, across our practice and executive search, both in the Asia Pac offices and here in Dubai, data analytics is right at the top. Your data management and research are very big ticket items, and a whole plethora of different roles, I must say, right across the supply chain. Because harking back right to your very first point, Elisha, data points. If you don't have your data points, you can't work off what you know, what's going on before you can find solutions, obviously. But what you were just talking about, Dyci, just reminded me of something that I wanted to make sure I get a quick snapshot answer from both of you. And that is, in terms of transformation that you're seeing taking place, or the demands for transformation, is it mainly being driven by the need for risk mitigation, or is it about growth? I know it's how long is a piece of string, but from your own experience in your ecosystems and what you're dealing with, and the dynamics that are taking place with still recessionary pressures around, and we'll get into some of the positive things that are happening. I know both of you are dealing with at the moment, but is it growth or is it risk mitigation that's really weighing in the main balance of things here?
I can start with that one. I think what I'm hearing is the last 2, really 3 years have been just up and down, for all of the weekly calls and cadences that they have to understand overall, inventory, feet under the fire. We're missing chips, we're missing electronic components, we can't get in, raw materials for our production. Those are starting to stabilize. There are still some long tail items, anything with silicon, anything with electrical components that can really hold up, especially construction, that can really hold up. Projects are starting to even out. So supply chains are ready to focus on growth. And with the economy, it's a little touch and go, but they understand now they have everything stabilized, but it's time to optimize. They realize there's a big value out there. How many can we automate the purchase order receipt process, right? It's $17 on average per purchase order for somebody to manually, process that. So what can we do to take out some of that work and really optimize our performances? So I think many of what I'm seeing is a focus on optimization, automation, and growth to set themselves up for success in the future, but it's a focus on the resilience, right? So how can we take what's coming at us, because now we don't know what's coming with consumer demand, and really become more resilient and flexible to what we see coming our way.
Okay. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing, and take my experience with a grain of salt, because we specifically work with customers who are wanting to grow and scale. If we even just in deciding whether or not we're a good fit for a client or a client is a good fit for us, it's very early on in the conversation. Are you looking to grow? Because if not, then that's not what our expertise is. Our expertise is, I want a 4X, I want a 10X over the next X number of years. I want to double my revenue. So that means doubling my team. That means understanding variable cost, et cetera. So obviously within the context of that conversation, we talk about risk. Who are your suppliers? Where are you going to put a plant? That type of thing. Understanding the critical path for your processes. Elisha mentioned process optimization, understanding what has to happen. A lot of our customers feel like they're always firefighting and they can't really get a cadence. I talked to a customer yesterday. He said, we're either going at 150 beats a minute, or we're resting. There's no in between of just maintaining. We're going, and I said, well, that's probably because maybe your level 1 process, but those little things in between the level 2, level 3, you haven't figured those out yet. So people don't know, I'm going to plan A didn't work out, but plan B, I'm just going to pivot to this thing. It's oh my goodness, what do I do? So risk mitigation does come in the conversation of, process and figuring out suppliers and where do you put plants and network design and things like that. But the conversation is very much growth. The conversation is very much, construction didn't slow down from like an inflationary, perspective. Costs went up, but things still have to get built. We still have an affordable housing crisis. We still have a need for housing. We still need to update buildings to be safer, to be more sustainable. So new technology is coming out. With the industries that we work with, no one is like, oh, it's a recession. We don't have cash. Like, we don't want to grow. Everyone is very much still like full steam ahead. So it's absolutely grow, scale. And how do I use my supply chain to be able to support that operationally?
I guess it comes back to the old saying: if you're not going forward, you're potentially going backwards. So sitting still is not a good place to be.
Agree.
So I got a question here for you, and this could go for hours, and it won't. So we'll restrict ourselves on this. Maybe we do this in the next quarter when I catch up, because I'm very keen to catch up with you quarterly on what's going on in your markets and keeping people updated. But I mean, AI. I'm sorry to bring it up, but it's going to be short and sweet. But I mean, Elisha, from your perspective, are we seeing a major impact by AI into the whole area of transformation at the moment? Big question again, how long is a piece of string? But are you seeing anything rock and rolling at the moment that's really having a major impact?
Absolutely. But I will bifurcate this, because an AI solution and integrating it into a process does not necessarily always mean transformation. The two can be separate efforts. So yes, I am seeing a lot of use cases for AI, and I'll call it two main areas. One is on the demand planning and generation side. So do we have enough inventory? Can we use predictive analytics to understand, what are weather patterns? What's our, longest tent in the pole in terms of raw materials? How do we best utilize that? Can we move product from one warehouse to another? I see AI as a big use case in that area. And then also in the production floor to predict when manufacturing machines may go down, to understand when maybe they're out of rhythm, and to really help utilize the production capacity for the factory itself, as well as provide intelligent data to the team so they can best leverage labor resources, right? That's still one of the number one costs in production. So, just making sure all resources and costs are where they could be.
Okay. Dyci, from your perspective?
I'll keep mine short, because I definitely echo a lot of what Elisha is saying. And what came to my mind that we've been working a lot with is intelligent scheduling. So she mentioned the labor and the assets, and having the system be able to predictively tell you, oh, well, this isn't the way that I learned it to be, so this should you should change. But I was very specific in using the words learn, because without the processes and the data, you're not going to achieve the promise of what you expect this AI to do. I can't remember who it was, but I feel like someone said we shouldn't have called it artificial intelligence. We should have called it like additional or augmented intelligence or something like that, because it's supporting the human. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to turn on AI. And I'm like, but you didn't teach it anything. Like you didn't give it data. You didn't tell it to do anything. So it's not just going to do it. Like you have to teach it. So I think that we're also not really at a point to be able to fully leverage the capabilities of AI, because you have to have this standardized business logic. You have to have this data to be able to feed it. And a lot of the customers that we're seeing on a transformational level are not there. Like you said, individual use case, sure. But from a transformational perspective, they're not there yet to be able to really leverage and teach AI.
Awesome. Brilliant. So thanks for that. Well, look, ladies, when we wrap, I always like to have our guests share with our audience one tip on the general subject matter that we've been talking about. So I didn't warn you about this, but from you, Elisha, for folks out there that are heading down a transformation, and this obviously comes with your perspective from your world and your ecosystem as the World Cross Industry Solutions Manager worldwide. for AWS, Amazon, what would be the one tip that you would offer to folks who are heading down the road of transformation? What would be one thing that you think that they should keep top of mind?
Focus on the problem or what you're trying to solve. I think too often the scope goes a little bit crazy, but you really need to nail down what problem am I trying to solve, and then the rest will help itself. We can build it later, but it's the why. Why are we doing this?
Simon Sinek, the why. Love it. Dyci, what's the one gem of wisdom?
Don't do it before you're ready. Don't do it before you're ready. I think people really overlook and underestimate the power of a readiness assessment from a change management perspective, an enablement perspective, HR, internal evangelization, if that's a word, and, like marketing. But it's leadership sits in this bubble and says, we're going to do this thing without really understanding if your end users are ready for that, if your suppliers are ready for that, who are you going to have to bring along? So don't overlook and underestimate the power of a readiness assessment and the gems that you get out of that from an insight. Look before you leap. Yes.
Okay. Well done.
You can, and you hear so many times, we're building the plane as we're flying, or we're building the car as we're moving. But why? Don't. Okay. Don't do that. That's not the right way.
Excellent. Very sage words from a very experienced couple of people, I think. Definitely. Okay, so we'll wrap here. And Elisha, you're with AWS, Amazon. If people want to get hold of you, should they just go to the website, or do you want to share any contact details if folks have got any contact they want to make with you?
LinkedIn would be perfect. So okay. Elisha Herman, right there.
Yeah, there it is down here or up there. And thanks so much for that. And Dyci, you are the founder of New Gen Architects. Where can people get hold of you best?
Same, LinkedIn, or for people who aren't on LinkedIn, especially in construction, I'm finding a lot of people are not on LinkedIn. Just hello@newgenarchitects.com or Dyci@newgenarchitects.com is where you can find it. Email.
Excellent. Well, thank you both so much. I know it's early in the morning there, and I know, Elisha, you had to drive because you couldn't get to fly. Your flight was cancelled last night to get in from Chicago. So they're in Ohio. So thanks so much. And Dyci, you as well. Always good to see you. And ladies, look forward to keeping in touch and catching up next quarter and seeing how things are going. We pick a new subject and share your experiences and ideas with others in our audience. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.